This is the technology guide video. I just want to show you some of the things mentioned in that guide. I am at the main home screen for our Canvas course, so this is what you will see every time you first get into Canvas. And some of the key buttons over here on the left, obviously if I post an announcement, you can see them all by going to the announcements area. This modules button, that's probably the single most important button. I've organized the course content into weekly modules to try to make your life as easy as possible. We'll take a look at a module in a few minutes. This My Lab and Mastering, that's how you transition from Canvas directly into MyMathLab. Now, you may not need to do that very often. I have the assignments for MyMathLab linked right in the module area, but there are a few things where you would have to go directly to MyMathLab. And then the grades button, all your grades for the semester are kept in there. You can see them at any time. Let me talk a little bit about communication. If I want to communicate with you outside of class, I can either post an announcement or most likely I would send a message to the class through the inbox. Now this is very, very important. At the beginning of the semester here, you need to go into your account and you need to click notifications and you need to set this up so that you receive an email anytime I post an announcement or send a message. Now, your screen may look a little different than mine, but here are the ones you really need to pay attention to. When you go into notifications, find announcement and maybe announcement created by you if there are two, and make sure both of those have the green check mark. The green check mark means you want an email right away when there's a new announcement. And then go down a little bit further to the conversation area. That's their name for messages. And make sure that all of the choices in that area also have the green check mark. I believe that these messages end up getting sent to your school email. You can, of course, go into your school email and set it to forward those messages to any email you desire. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the module area. You can access it over here. You can access it on the left. When you select modules, you're taken to this page that will eventually show you all of the weekly modules. Right now, Module 1 for Week 1 is open here. And I've tried to make this a one-stop shop for really everything you need to do during the week. I've broken down each module into the in-class part, the stuff that relates to Tuesday's class, and then the online component. And you can see I've got links in here to the handouts that I give out in class, so if you lose something or you're absent, you can always download it right from here. I have links to the MyMathLab assignments. Here's one. Here's a quiz actually you're going to take this week through MyMathLab. I have links to CCC Confer for the online office hours, to the participation checks you have to do. If you go down a little further, you can see links to the videos as well as the discussion board posts. So really everything you need to do, there's a link in here in the module. Let's try choosing one of the entries. For example, let's choose this week's online checklist. This is simply a copy of what I gave you in class of that checklist. You can scroll through if you need to. You can click here to download it and of course print it out if you so desired. And then if you notice when you're in a module at the bottom of the screen, you've got these buttons that allow you to move either to the item before or to the next item. So I've looked at this checklist. If I click Next, well, this is a link to take me to CCC Confer for the online office hour. And so I would choose this, and a new window would open up where I can get into CCC Confer. And there's instructions for dealing with that at the back of the technology guide. If I hit Next again, now I'm taken to the first participation check. Remember, every time there's an online office hour, I give a password, or they call it an access code, and you need to get that so that you can do this participation check. Remember, you can either participate live in those online office hours or simply watch the recording later. If I try here to take the quiz, I don't think it's going to let me do that because it's looking for an access code. But it's not much of a quiz. Once you put in the code, the next page it simply asks you, did you watch the online office hour? You say yes, hit submit, and that's it. Well, let's say I finish that. I can keep hitting next, of course, to move on to these other items, or I can always, at any time, hit that module button to take me back to kind of the bird's eye view of everything that's being asked of me that week. Let me skip down to where the videos are located. Typically, you're going to have two sets of videos each week to watch. And if you choose one here, you get a link to the actual videos. The videos are housed in YouTube. You can play it right here if you want to, or if you'd rather go directly into YouTube, you can hit the link up here and it'll take you there. And again, of course, you can hit next to go on to the next video and so forth. Let me skip down here a little further as well to the discussion board post area. There's a discussion board each week where you'll be posting a problem from the practice portion of the online lesson handout. And I've got all the instructions here I think that you should need. I thought I would just give you a brief idea of what it looks like. After you read the instructions and once you're ready to make a post, you hit reply, and then this window comes up. And please, this is very, very important. The first thing you need to do in the window is you need to type problem number whatever, because other students will need to know which problem you've posted to make sure that they are not exceeding the maximum number of posts. And then you can choose either to type in your work directly here. You need to put all the work and explanation in addition to the answer. Or you can take a picture of what you did on your paper and simply attach that. So either way you want to go is fine. If you end up doing some typing, you're probably going to want to use this button. This is where you have some nice math templates for fractions or exponents or square roots. You can play around with these different menus and see all the things that are up there. For example, if I wanted to type in 2/3, I would hit the fraction button and then I can put in the numbers. And then let's say I wanted to do times. Well, I could use that symbol from up there. And let's put in, say, -6 squared. I typed in the -6. To get the squared, I would have to use this exponent button. And now I can type in the 2. You can only put one line at a time into here, so I would hit insert the equation. It's going to put it in, and then I would go down to the next line and continue. One thing you might find helpful is to copy and paste using the typical Microsoft Word commands one line to the next, because then you can choose it and hit that button again, and instead of having to retype everything for the next step, you can now just change the parts you want. For example, the next step here would be to square -6, which is +36. And then I can insert that, and I can continue on like this until I've kind of shown my step by step and come up with the final answer. So you'll need to play around with it a little bit, or again, as I said, you can simply attach a picture. Whichever way you go, though, make absolutely sure you're putting that problem number there to receive full credit, so that your classmates know which problem you have chosen. You'd hit post reply when you are all done. Okay, to wrap things up, I just wanted to address a couple of things related to MyMathLab directly. Remember, you can always get there through this link, the MyLab and Mastering link. That'll take you to this page. You'll do Open MyLab and Mastering, and that will pull up a new tab where you are in MyMathLab. Let's see, I have more buttons over here than you will see, but let me point out what you may want to get into. On the left here, there are direct ways to access the MyMathLab homework classwork or MyMathLab quizzes and exams. Of course, most of the time you'll probably just access them right through Canvas, through the module area. The gradebook just shows you your MyMathLab scores. For all grades, you'll have to go into Canvas. But still, this is a handy place to come, because if you ever want to just review an old MyMathLab assignment, you can come in there and do that. This next button, if you are ever absent on a Tuesday, I have a few of those lessons on video, not all of them, but a few, and you could always check here to see if I have something. If I don't, then go into the textbook resources area because the publisher has videos for every single section of the book, and you can just watch those. And of course, in here you can also find the ebook, anything related to the book, it's all in there. The study plan is where you can go for unlimited computer practice in MyMathLab. It's not part of your grade, but it's a nice thing to know about. Let's see, I wanted to mention at the bottom here there's this thing, browser check. The very first time you run MyMathLab at home, you may need to run the browser check. It'll make sure that your computer has everything it needs to work properly. There's a technical support number in the technology guide in case you need to contact MyMathLab. There's also in there in the section using MyMathLab at home, there's what we call a backdoor website, and every once in a while MyMathLab goes down, but usually there's this back door you can still get into to complete homework and classwork assignments, and I've given you that address right in the technology guide, so take a look at that. The last thing I want to do is just briefly explain the difference between a MyMathLab homework classwork assignment, which we talked a lot about on the first day, and then a MyMathLab quiz or exam. There's a lot of similarities, but let me point out the key difference. The quiz you're going to take this week is just a simple quiz on the syllabus. Obviously, later ones will have math problems. The main difference between these guys and the homework is there's no check your answer button down here. You have to complete the entire thing before you get any feedback. So you would read this, you'd make your choice, and then just hit the arrow to take you to the next question, and so on, right? Keep answering the questions. If you need to go back to one, you can hit this arrow in the middle and really go to any question you want. Once you're all done, that's when you hit submit quiz. Don't hit it in the middle because once you hit it, it's over and there's no changing that. So make sure you are done before you submit the quiz. Okay, well, I think that gives you a good overview of Canvas and MyMathLab. I would really encourage you play around with all this stuff as much as you can here early on. And if you find anything that you can't figure out, bring it to that first online office hour, and I will try to give you some help.